The Tennessee Titans will be on the clock here in a little under 3 months as they have the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we're going to be breaking down their first 3-round NFL mock draft of the 2025 NFL offseason. But before we break that down, if you like the content that Ryan and I put out and you want to help the Tracy Tate channel grow, easiest way is hitting that subscribe button, tackling that bell to get notified when videos come out. And while you're at it, leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Titans do with their first overall pick. And with that being said, Ryan, let's pull up the draft order here. And so we did a full 3-round mock draft, all 100 or so picks here. And the Titans, we have them select Cam Ward first overall. But as you can see here, even on the side, other potential options, I think any of these players, I think, could potentially be like their first overall pick. I think a trade back is a slight option. Not that it's very serious. I think just with kind of the team needs overall, this is a good time to reset. But I will say it's not like I think it's great that they control their destiny being the first overall pick. But at the same time, it's not like you're super excited to have Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or whichever quarterback that you want here. And I don't think it's entirely a guarantee they go quarterback now at this point. But we'll have to kind of wait and see that's what this whole draft process is like. Do you think I do think it's a sure thing that they're going quarterback? And if so, who do you think would be okay, so no. So do you think Cam Ward?
I don't think it's a sure thing that they would go quarterback. I do think that they are probably more than likely going to take one of these quarterbacks. For me, it's Cam Ward. I just think he has the higher ceiling there. You look at his college production, he's gotten better every single year. He has only really had a quarterbacks coach, I think, the last 3 seasons while he's been in college football. And so, like, there's still a lot of, I think, uncharted territory for what Cam Ward could bring to a football team. Whereas Shedeur has had top-level coaching throughout his entire football career, really. And that is both a good thing and a bad thing. Is one, I feel like Shedeur is more what you see is what you get. And there are definitely some concerns I still have about his game. Not that it's anything that I think makes him not a first round pick, but like, I think when you compare it to last year's quarterback class, these guys would be 7 or 8 in that conversation. Most likely, I mean, you could make a case that JJ McCarthy and Bo Nix would be in that territory, but I just think that these guys are not, these are first round quarterback prospects, but they're not like can't miss quarterback prospects, if that makes sense. So I do think that there is some merit to the new GM saying the comment about generational players. And you have Travis Hunter there. Abdul Carter seems to be rising up draft boards at a tremendous pace. At this point, there's not much higher he can go, but I think that there is something to be said about a guy that comes in who was a off the ball linebacker last year and comes and starts playing on the edge and is just an absolute menace there in Abdul Carter. Travis Hunter, the two-way player, his dynamism and what he brings to the table just as a football player, I think is very enticing for teams as well. So there's a lot to consider here with this first pick. I think more than likely teams without quarterbacks are going to be looking to take a quarterback. And I think that is just kind of the case here with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking about this before we started recording. Like, if they do go non-QB, it would be between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. There's nobody else really that I think could.
Yeah,
it'd be wild. It'd be wild if they went Ashton Genty. Like, I think he would be great in Tennessee, but that would be wild if they actually did. I think that's a very unlikely. Extremely unlikely outcome. And to me, like, looking at Tennessee and where they're at, like, I know Tennessee, they only had 32 sacks in the season last year, one of the worst ones in the league. But I actually really like their defensive line. I mean, you got Justin Simmons, you got Harold Landry, not Gerald Landry. I was going to say Gerald Landry. And I knew that wasn't right. You got Arden Key as well. All these guys ranked really well, and they had a really good I think defensive line. Devondre Sweat up there. I know he's a nose tackle, barely. Because I think sitting there at like 360. But I actually like their defensive line, and to me, I think they would probably want to favor the secondary more, anyways. And what Travis Hunter would bring with the dual capabilities, I think would help out in an offense, and they can address QB in some other form or fashion, whether it be paying Sam Darnold. Trusting Will Levis again and hoping that he can develop, which is very unlikely also. I think it's more likely they draft Ashton Genty than they trust Will Levis again.
Well, and that's that too. you got L'Jarius Sneed out of last year's free agent market. Not free agent market because it was a trade, obviously, but out of last year's offseason. And I think if you pair him up with Travis Hunter, I think that's setting up your secondary for success. You also uh,
He
think
did only
about
play a couple games last year too, Legarius.
yeah, yeah.
So
And so like that would I think would set your defense up well for success. You have Roger McCreary there as well. And the other thing too with Travis Hunter is even if he's just comes in on offensive packages at times, like imagine what him, Calvin Ridley, Chikezim Okonkwo, Tony Pollard all on the field at the same time. That's a lot of athleticism. That's gonna like stress out a lot of defenses and put a lot of pressure on defenses, especially too if Travis Hunter's only coming in for a certain amount of packages. Defenses would have to game plan certain packages to try to guard him and things like that. So I think that would be an interesting option there. And then honestly, I think just from watching the Senior Bowl, the big thing that I took away from that was, yeah, this quarterback class isn't great, but there are some guys I think in round 2 or round 3 or 4 that are going to come in and be decent developmental projects. Like Dylan Gabriel looks like a solid game managing style quarterback. Jackson Dart looks like a interesting toolsy developmental prospect there. Jalen Milroe he got better as the week went on. He had a rough start, but another guy I think that you could get in the 3rd or 4th round and kind of build from
yeah.
there. So I know the Titans are a little bit limited on draft capital. They only have one other pick in the first 3 rounds, but it is there are a lot of other options. I know that kind of feels like a retread of Will Levis, but if you don't fall in love with one of these quarterback prospects, don't try to force it.
Well, it's Jackson Dart one reminds me, is particularly for Tennessee, reminds me of like a Will Levis situation here.
And I agree. Most of those
And
guys turn out to be that way.
yeah, and so and that's just what's interesting. And we haven't really talked too much about Cam Ward here because I think he's just kind of it's really between him and Shedeur Sanders. It's whichever one
Yeah.
that they want. Like Cam Ward has the tools and the ceiling, obviously. But I say that about Jackson Dart. I can kind of see the same thing also too with Will Levis as well, where it's like, nope, he can come in and make some pretty bonehead decisions. Like he's got the talent there, he's got the arm
Yeah.
and the skill set, but he is just making poor decisions. And so that's what it's different though. They took Will Levis with in the 2nd round, not even the same regime. And Cam Ward, you had the first overall pick, so you really want to hit this one out of the park. So that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Let's move on now to their 2nd pick. They only have 2 picks in this 3-round mock draft here, and a lot of different routes they can end up going. We ended up going with Donovan Jackson, interior offensive lineman out of Ohio State. We say interior because he really is traditionally a guard, but I
Yeah.
think he really helped out his stock because Josh Simmons, the left tackle at Ohio State, got hurt during the Oregon game, and Donovan Jackson kicked out to the left tackle position and honestly played really well at the left tackle position for a guy that's mainly played guard his entire career in college. And so he's
Yeah.
going to provide a lot of versatility, I think, for this Tennessee Titans team, especially too with Dylan Verdun's being a free agent. That experiment I don't really think has worked out. I think he would be an immediate plug and play starter. And now you have a young offensive line now too with a lot of talent with Peter Skoronski, J.C. Latham, Dylan Verdun's as well. Jalen Duncan, also too, who they drafted last year, is an athletic freak, and so he was starting to get some more playing time as well. And I think he could come in and this could be a really young offensive line that develops, especially too if they go with Cam Ward and now you have a young quarterback and they're all going to be developing together. I think it could be an interesting scenario here. But Ryan, with that being said, what are your quick thoughts on Donovan Jackson? What are some other avenues you think they could end up going with a 2nd-round pick?
Yeah, I mean, he first off, he's just a good football player. He's probably the best offensive lineman on the board at this point. There are a few other guys that you can see, like Josh Connerly and Jonas Savanaia, are on the board there as well. But all in all, you get him, like you said, you pair him next to J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski, Jalen Duncan was playing well at the end of well-ish at the end of last season, and like you have a young group of offensive linemen that can learn and grow together. But the main thing here is you're just investing in protection for Cam Ward, and also talk about a powerful group. These guys are going to be phenomenal run blockers in the running game. You get Tony Pollard behind this line of scrimmage, who led the league in in broken tackles last year, or forced missed tackles. I believe those are similar, if not the same stat, but or maybe it was yards after contact actually that I'm thinking of, but who led the league in yards after contact. I think that's going to be a really important thing for them to invest in as you know, you get a young quarterback who has some issues and that need to be worked out. Rely on that run game. You had a top 5 points allowed defense last season, so I think that's going to be really important for this team to just kind of continue to invest in. So they have strong trenches on the defensive side already. If they make this pick here, I think that's boding well for them to be strong in the trenches on the offensive side also.
Yeah. It's Titans are in a very interesting position here when it comes to this draft. Is one, they only got 2 picks in the top 100, but also two, it's like I'm even looking back. I just pulled up like the 2022 NFL draft, like when their division rival, the Jacksonville Jaguars, had the first overall pick. But even too in that class, like we saw the prospects that were coming out, and like these are some really good prospects that are coming out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they ended up taking Trayvon Walker. Then it was Aiden Hutchinson, Derek Stingley Jr., Ahmad Gardner or Sauce Gardner, and then Kayvon Thibodeau. Those 5 guys right there in the NFL are all really good. You know, Trayvon
Yeah.
Walker's been a hit. Aiden Hutchinson's definitely been a hit. Derek Stingley's about to get paid. Sauce Gardner is one of the better quarterbacks in the league also as well. And Kayvon Thibodeau's doing a good job in New York. So, like, I could see all of those guys have being like the first overall pick. I just don't feel that same way with this 2024 or with this 2025 class. It is definitely a drop off in overall talent. There's a lot of good players, but
Yeah.
not guys that are clear first round overall talent. First overall pick talent. And so
Yeah.
the Titans are in a very interesting position here overall as a team. It's going to be fascinating to see what they end up doing.
Yeah, and they're in a particularly tricky spot too because it's like there's really 2 blue chip players in this class. You have Travis Hunter, you have Abdul Carter. Do you want to invest in, like your GM said, a generational like blue chip talent and kick the can down the road on the quarterback class, or you're a new GM, you're going to have time to come in? Brian Callahan might get overruled in this scenario specifically, where it's like Brian Callahan might want the best player on the board. The GM wants to go and get a quarterback to kind of build this franchise around and see if there's a clash there in just mentality. Just because these quarterbacks, while I have a first round grade on both of them, they're not as good, in my opinion, as Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. So it's a
Exactly.
really interesting spot that they're in just drafting overall. So I'm looking forward to see what they do. I'm curious at everybody else's thoughts on this, if they want to go with the blue chip town, if they want to go with Abdul Carter. So let's go ahead and wrap this video up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you want the Tennessee Titans to do. Do you want them to draft Cam Ward first overall? Do you want them to draft Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, trade the pick? Let us know down below. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.